This video is sponsored by Hungry Minds. For World War II bomber crews, flying alone meant annihilation. When fighter escorts reached their range limit and turned back, they became vulnerable targets. A decade later, things hadn't improved. This was especially true for American pilots tasked with penetrating Soviet airspace, a continent-wide fortress bristling with radars, missiles, and high-speed interceptors. Escort fighters weren't just impractical, they were impossible. Smaller aircraft lacked the range. Only strategic bombers like the B-29 Superfortress could go the distance. That's when someone floated a radical idea. The inspiration was almost absurd. Grainy World War I footage of biplanes dangling from massive dirigibles. In the atomic age, what if bombers carried their own fighters inside them? The Ficon project's engineers faced an incredible challenge. How do you solve problems that have never existed before? When you're trying to dock a fighter jet inside a bomber mid-flight, there's no textbook to consult. Every solution had to be built from first principles, combining basic physics with cutting-edge innovation. This kind of problem-solving from scratch is exactly what the book, The Ultimate Guide to Rebuilding a Civilization, is all about. What if all our accumulated knowledge disappeared, and you needed to rebuild civilization step by step? This remarkable book tackles that exact scenario. At Dark Footage, we especially love the fact that it's not just theoretical. It provides practical, step-by-step guidance for recreating humanity's most essential discoveries. From metallurgy that builds aircraft frames to the radar systems that guided those experimental flights, it covers the fundamental knowledge that makes projects like Ficon possible. The book represents a collaboration of over 50 professionals, artists, scientists, architects, and designers, all working together to preserve and share this critical knowledge. With clear technical illustrations and beautiful artwork, it's designed to be accessible for everyone, whether you're genuinely preparing for the future or simply fascinated by how our modern world actually works. Best of all, our viewers can get 10% off. Just click on the link in the description and use our exclusive promo code DARKFootage10. The wingtip gamble. In the early years of the Cold War, the U.S. Air Force faced a troubling paradox: how to penetrate deep into Soviet territory without being annihilated by the expanding net of Soviet air defenses. The long-range reconnaissance aircraft of the era, such as the hulking Convair RB-36 Peacemaker, had endurance, but not speed. This led military planners to dream up something audacious. What if a bomber could carry a high-speed jet fighter inside it? A parasite aircraft, light, fast, camera-equipped, would be released mid-air, dash into enemy skies, snap its photographs, and return to rendezvous with its mothership. That vision resulted in two crazy and daring ventures, Project Tiptoe and Project TomTom. The first serious attempt at extending the operational range of jet fighters in conjunction with bombers came with Project MX-1016, better known as Tiptoe. Rather than house a jet inside a bomber, this concept called for the fighters to dock mid-air wingtip to wingtip with a bomber, hitching a ride like sidecars on a motorcycle. The goal was to allow jet fighters, limited by short range, to escort bombers much deeper into enemy territory by conserving fuel during the tow. Tiptoe employed a modified B-29 Superfortress and two EF-84D Thunderjets. Initially, tests were conducted with just one jet attached, later progressing to two. When connected, the fighters shut down their engines to save fuel, relying on the bomber's thrust to carry them along. Pilots retained manual control, using the elevators to manage roll, since ailerons were ineffective while latched. Hookups were successful, and by September 15, 1950, both F-84s docked simultaneously during the 10th test flight. The longest connected flight occurred on October 20th, lasting nearly 3 hours. Encouraged by this progress, Republic Aviation was contracted to incorporate an automatic flight control system to reduce pilot workload and increase safety. It was from this ambitious program that the staggering pictures of bombers with fighters attached to the wingtips emerged. In recent years, some have rushed to call the images doctored, when in fact they were part of a U.S. program, not afraid to push the limits of engineering. However, turbulence and wingtip vortices of the B-29 made the configuration inherently unstable. On April 24, 1953, disaster struck during a test over Peconic Bay, New York. The left-hand F-84 latched on, and the automatic system was activated, only for the fighter to immediately flip and collide with the bomber's wing. Both aircraft plummeted into the sea, taking the lives of 5 crewmen aboard the B-29 and the F-84 pilot. The program was terminated. The pilot of the other F-84, Major Clarence Bud Anderson, would later become a central figure in Project Ficon. Tiptoe offered a chilling preview of just how fragile airborne coupling systems could be when theory met turbulence. A bigger, riskier sequel. Undeterred, the Air Force tried again. Project TomTom took the same wingtip docking idea and scaled it up. Using a modified JRB-36F bomber, an aircraft far larger and more powerful than the B-29, TomTom aimed to link 2 RF-84F Thunder Flashes to the bomber's wingtips using articulated arms and clamps. The tests, conducted in 1956, showed some promise. Convair test pilots Doc Witchell, Beryl Erickson, and Raymond Fitzgerald managed several successful connections. But as with Tiptoe, turbulent airflow and wing vortices created immense stresses on the docking mechanism. The concept met its undoing on September 23, 1956, when Erickson's Thunder Flash was violently torn from the bomber's right wingtip mid-flight. Though all aircraft landed safely, the incident confirmed the dangers. By that point, aerial refueling technology was rapidly maturing, offering a safer, more flexible way to extend fighter range. TomTom was quietly shelved. These 2 early programs, Tiptoe and TomTom, pushed the boundaries of aviation engineering, but ultimately failed under the weight of aerodynamic reality. Still, they paved the way for the more ambitious and mechanically isolated parasite concept of Project Ficon, which finally put the fighter inside the bomber. Project Ficon takes flight. In 1950, as Tiptoe tests continued, the Air Force launched Project Ficon. This time, the idea wasn't to dangle fighters from wingtips, but to cradle one inside the bomber itself. The GRB-36F, a modified RB-36 Peacemaker, was refitted with a retractable hydraulic trapeze system tucked within its cavernous bomb bay. Its designated parasite would eventually be the sleek, camera-equipped RF-84F Thunder Flash, but development delays forced early tests to use the F-84E Thunder Jet. Engineers reimagined the bomb bay as a kind of airborne hangar. Standard bay doors were replaced with contoured clearance doors to reduce drag. Fairings, lighting, heaters, and a trapeze operator's control station were installed. The bomber underwent a radical weight loss program, dubbed Featherweight 3, stripping nearly 9,000 pounds of equipment, including guns, chaff dispensers, and celestial navigation domes. The parasite aircraft latched onto the trapeze via a fork-style nose probe and rear fuselage pins, which linked to a retractable boom assembly. Pilots had to perform a delicate approach under the bomber's wake, adjusting flaps and trim to align perfectly beneath the swaying trapeze. Launching the parasite was a coordinated process. The trapeze was lowered, the parasite's engine started mid-air, and the Thunderjet detached to dash toward its target. Returning was even trickier. The parasite homed in on a beacon, located yellow guide lights on the mothership, and made a precise approach. The pilot carefully plugged the nose probe into the receiver before engaging the rear pins. It could look seamless when everything went right, but it often didn't. Misalignments, turbulence, or minor miscalculations could spoil a hookup attempt. Emergency systems included winches, air bottles, and jettison explosives, but even with those, retrieval was risky. Pilots had to override instinct and navigate by finesse, not force. To support sustained missions, the parasite could be refueled in the bomb bay via an internal 1,200-gallon JP-4 tank. Reconnaissance film cartridges could also be transferred mid-air, while warmth from the GRB-36's environmental systems kept the parasite's cockpit and cameras heated via insulated ducts. Bud Anderson returns. By 1951, Ficon testing began in earnest. One of its test pilots was none other than Major Clarence Bud Anderson, veteran of the failed Tiptoe project. Now tasked with piloting the parasite Thunderjet, Anderson had to fly beneath the bomber, engage the nose probe into the trapeze, and endure the roar of 6 propellers above. His first attempt on January 9, 1952, proved brutal. Buffeted by turbulence, he struggled to maintain position. The probe missed repeatedly. When contact was finally made, the Thunderjet pitched and yawed so wildly that he had to abort. Later tests revealed further issues: boom instability, latch malfunctions, and violent oscillations. Engineers responded with iterative fixes, shortening the boom, adding shock absorbers, tweaking autopilot systems, and redesigning the probe. Some missions succeeded, others nearly ended in disaster. On one attempt, a locking pin failed as the trapeze retracted the fighter, smashing the canopy and tearing the fuselage. Anderson barely recovered in time, restarting the jet just 4,000 feet above the ground. Despite the setbacks, enough missions succeeded to impress the Air Force leadership. By May 1952, after 68 successful hookups, the Ficon system moved toward operational trials. The Air Force even envisioned using it not just for reconnaissance, but also for tactical nuclear delivery. Ficon in the field. Operational tests in 1953 showed Ficon's potential. The GRB-36 ferried its parasite deep into simulated enemy territory, launching the Thunderjet near target zones like Annapolis and Albany. The parasite flew low, took its photos, and returned undetected. No other system at the time matched this level of stealth, speed, and reusability. But the challenges never went away. Night operations were perilous. Bad weather made retrieval nearly impossible. The trapeze's hydraulic system lacked redundancy, and without aerial refueling, the parasite's endurance remained limited. By the time the RF-84F was ready for full deployment, the strategic picture had shifted. The U-2 high-altitude reconnaissance jet, soon followed by spy satellites, offered similar capabilities with lower risk and fewer moving parts. The age of airborne parasite fighters was over before it began. Many thanks to Hungry Minds for powering today's exploration. The book, The Ultimate Guide to Rebuilding a Civilization, contains the foundational knowledge that led to experimental projects like Ficon. Remember, you can get yours with 10% off using the link in the description and the promo code DARKFootage10.